Good morning, BookTube. So it is day 4 of the reading rush here, and I will be continuing on with my reading of the biography of Gustave Flaubert, Life and Letters of Gustave Flaubert by John Tarver. Is my mind going, or is his name really John? Or is it Charles? This is fascinating. John Charles Tarver. I'm not going crazy. The author's name is both John and both Charles, but I will be continuing on with that today. I've got a cup of coffee on the go here, and I'm going to have a super healthy breakfast this morning and have a couple of these blueberry cheese mini strudel that I picked up at the Farm Boy yesterday. I've got some peaches here, but they're not ripe yet. So breakfast may also just include some cherries and a glass of milk. Nothing too fancy here. And I've got, I made some rice with some chicken and peanut sauce last night in the evening with some stuff that I picked up at the store. And so I've got that for my lunch today. I hope you all have a great reading day. I will check in with you later. So even in my first page of the day here, page 75, I find something worth sharing. The author is talking about morality, about Flaubert's perspective on society and how one should behave. And the author seems very much to be inserting some of his own opinions into the book as he talks about Flaubert, which is interesting. So the author says, "There's nothing more pitiful than the conventional morality of the 19th century. It is the age of whitewash, and what is worse, the age of double entendre. The coarsest statement, the grossest act, are less demoralizing than the dainty illusion, the veiled but not hidden vice." All this Flaubert felt, and at the same time saw that it was not universally felt, even by his intimate friends. Farther, on many subjects he was predisposed to be less delicate than other people, through having been the son of a hard-working, enthusiastic surgeon and accustomed, let me flip the page here, from his earliest youth to the talk and sight of the dissecting room. And so it's interesting to hear the author talk in such a way about Flaubert's views on morality, which seem in part to be at least a little bit colored by the author's own views. Perhaps it's just a mistake in the way the sentences are written, and he didn't really mean to take those views upon himself, and he meant them to be only Flaubert's views, but it does come across as though they are his views too. And this is someone who really seems to idolize Flaubert. Hi BookTube, so I have stepped away from my desk to give you a little bit of a reading update. So I did continue with Flaubert, with Flaubert's biography today, and I have to say it is really an odd book. It is an oddly structured book. It's like the author can't decide whether he is showing us letters written by Flaubert, or whether it is a biography, or whether it is a work of literary criticism. It's just kind of an oddly structured mishmash. And then the author goes off on what I can only describe as tangents. There are 5 to 6 pages, which is just a synopsis of an early novel by Flaubert. Like scene for scene, plot point for plot point, and I'm not sure why that's necessary. And then to go and make matters stranger, I mentioned there was a French lady. Yesterday in my vlog I mentioned there was a French lady that was referred to but not named
Then all of a sudden, 150 pages in, it's like the author changes his mind and does go ahead and name her Louise. Her name is Louise, I'm forgetting her last name. But all of a sudden, it doesn't matter that she's named, and so my reasoning as to why she wasn't named, that the author meant to protect her identity, doesn't make any sense anymore. And so it just seems nonsensical that the author chose to talk about her but not name her in the first 150 pages. It's not my favorite nonfiction work I've ever read, nor my favorite biography, but I will continue on to the end because it is interesting. At the moment, the author is sharing bits about Flaubert's travels in Egypt and Libya and Syria, which I find a little bit interesting. Although once again, there's not a lot of context. The excerpts from his letters are just, prefaced by a short paragraph and not a whole lot of analytical content on the author's part. But that aside, I will read on. So I was reading on the bus, and the author just spent a dozen pages or more. I kind of skimmed. He spent a dozen pages or more recounting the major plot points of Madame Bovary with really nothing extra added. Just to do it. I don't know whether he was trying to fill space or trying to write a decent book for someone who didn't have access to Gustave Flaubert's works in English, or for someone who had never read the author, but it was just a little bit absurd. Okay, here's the deal. I think I'm just going to go ahead and actually DNF Life and Letters of Gustave Flaubert, because it's just not well structured, and there's a lot of stuff in here that I don't think is necessary towards telling the story of his life, and there's a lot missing that I would have liked to see when I'm reading the story of someone's life. So I think I will set this aside and perhaps look for a better biography of Gustave Flaubert if I would like to read about his life in the future. So the question then, of course, is if I'm DNFing that, what am I picking up next? So I think I'm going to take Lisa of Lambeth with me in my bag to the theater. I'm about to head out to go to the theater. I have lots of scene points, so I'm going to see a free movie. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood comes out tonight, and the first showing is at 7 p.m. So I'm going to head out and see that because the trailer for that one really appealed to me. Okay, so quick update before I go to bed here and call it a day. I did get about a third of the way through Lisa of Lambeth on my way to the theater, and it's all right so far. The opening chapter was weirdly written as though it was the opening scene to a musical or something. The people on Lambeth Street are, sitting on their front stoops. The children are playing in the streets, and then because someone is playing music, a bunch of the women get up and decide to dance, and then the men join in, and then Lisa comes along in her new purple dress, which she either paid to get specially made, as she said, or more likely, as someone suggests, she purchased it at the local pawn shop. And it does sound as though it's quite a gaudy dress. completely purple. She's got matching stockings to match, from what I understand. And so this would be something quite bright and perhaps something that, respectable women wouldn't be wearing in this neighborhood. So she's coming off perhaps a little bit cheap, but when she shows up in this dress, the entire street starts yelling out to her and the men start chasing her. And as she dances a bit and then she runs off down the street being chased by these men. So you can really imagine it as like the scene to a musical, the opening scene in a musical. And she ends up running into the arms of a man who kisses her, except he's married and he has a wife and children. But then she goes home and hides the fact that she bought a new dress from her mother and accuses her mother of trying to steal her money. We learn that she works in a factory, and so we see that very tense relationship between her and her mother. But then a young man shows up in the next chapter and he proposes. I believe his name is Tom. He proposes to Lisa and she turns him down because she doesn't love him. But then the next day, there's a whole bunch of couples going off on this excursion. I think they're going to some sort of party or a fair or something along those lines. We don't know quite what it is yet because they're just preparing to go and they're not there yet. But Lisa is a little bit depressed that she's not going since, now that she's turned down Tom, she feels that she can't accompany him as his date because they're not going out together. But after the urging of the married man whose arms she ran into, she decides to hint at Tom to ask her to go again, and off she goes with these other couples to have some fun. And I would say we'll see what happens next, but I know what happens next because I've heard all about this novel, particularly the way it ends in the biography of Somerset Maugham that I've been reading. But as I said, I will call it a day here. I really should get to bed. It's quite late, way past my bedtime. I'm going to be a bit tired at work tomorrow, but Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was really worth it. It was a very good film. Whatever you expect out of that film, that's not it. It's not entirely what I expected. To some degree it was, but there were a few moments when it just blew all my expectations out of the water. Quite literally, in one scene, there's a flamethrower involved. But really good film, probably something I would watch again. So I'd recommend that you go and see that. It's got Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt. And Brad Pitt's character is just excellent. DiCaprio's character isn't bad either, but Brad Pitt's character is just absolutely one of the best characters and performances I've seen on screen in a long time. So that was a good use of my evening, but as I said, I'm tired. And obviously, since it's almost 11 p.m. on a Thursday night, I am not going to manage to film my Friday reads for tomorrow. So this week there will be no Friday reads. I'm not entirely sure what I would have talked about in a Friday reads anyway, as I've been essentially vlogging most of my reading this week. But anyway, I shall see you again tomorrow in the next vlog for day 5 of the Reading Rush.